Hey, today there's a special guest here in the studio, and last week as I was working on the message from Matthew chapter 18, the first half of chapter 18, I just kept thinking about this guy who's here today, and I'll introduce you to him in just a second. But remember last week we were looking at Jesus' sermon on the church from Matthew chapter 18, and I'm going to continue with that in a little bit. But in the first half, Jesus talked a lot about the children, right? And remember he said, unless you become like a little child, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. We all want to be part of the kingdom of heaven. And then he said something that was even more surprising. He said, when you welcome a little child in my name, you welcome me. And I think all of us want to welcome Jesus. We love being in his presence. When we are in his presence, we end up being transformed. We just want more of Jesus' presence. So as I was thinking about that and praying about that and working through these scriptures, I kept thinking about Jason Peters. So everybody, this is Jason Peters, and he works with Safe Families. And so I just want to let you in on our conversation today. So Jason, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And tell us about Safe Families.
Yeah, so Safe Families is an organization that works with children and families in crisis to prevent those children from entering into the foster care system.
Right, okay.
So the whole goal of Safe Families really is to keep children safe, and it's to keep families intact.
Okay, so it's different than foster parenting or like the foster system. How is it different?
Yeah, so like there's a few things that would make us different, but one of the main ones is that we are completely like volunteer driven. Okay. All of the people that serve the families that we work with are volunteers. We don't do any apprehension. So the families that are working with us or that are being referred to us are families that have said they want our help. Okay. And the parent and the child have to be willing to enter into a Safe Families home. Okay. Just because that trauma is really great in a child's life to be removed. And so we want to empower parents, right. And we want that place to be safe for the child and to know that it's a safe place for them. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, one of the other like big differences between us, I guess, and the foster care system would also be that we're working like in short-term cases. Okay. So we're working with those families who haven't hit the point yet where they like really need the children to be out of the home for a long period of time. We're working with those families who are in crisis or sort of on the way to needing maybe child welfare intervention. And so our hope is to catch them before they get there and to work with them for maybe up to 3 months, where we would host children in homes for 3 months. And then during that time, the parent knows my child is in a safe spot. Yeah. They're not going to be apprehended. Okay. And then that helps them to sort of have the peace and the clarity and the ability to begin to put together a plan to get out of the crisis that they're in. So,
right. So the parents, they're not giving up any rights or anything like to visitation or whatever?
Yeah, the parent is the parent the whole time. If at any point they want the child to come home, the child will come home. Okay. That's no problem. If the child wants to come home, we would work with the parent to make sure that that can happen as well.
All right. So they have more choice, I guess. They're choosing. The families are choosing this. Yeah. Or the parents of the children are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the parents are willing and desiring to be out of the crisis that they're in. And a lot of the time, because of the fear of having their children maybe apprehended, and just that history and the baggage and anxiety that might come with the thought of, if I share this struggle with someone, will my children be taken away? Okay. By being referred to us, that fear sort of is alleviated. Okay. And so in a lot of ways, Safe Families, is as much about the parent as it is about the child. Our hope is that once the parent knows their child is in a safe place, that's when they're able to actually do the things that they want to do to be the parent that they want to be.
So would it be something like maybe a parent or parents feel like they need some help in a certain area, but in order to get that help, they're afraid they might lose their children, so they choose not to get that help?
Yeah, like that happens. That would happen quite frequently in families' lives. But also, there's a lot of times, where that's the fear, but also parents just don't know that sort of help is available. And they don't know who they can turn to. And so they often think, oh, well, CFS is the only sort of organization or agency that can help.
Right. Okay.
And so once they hear about Safe Families, they know that there's another option.
Yeah.
And we don't work against CFS.
Right,
CFS is one of our main referral sources.
Okay.
And so the families that, there isn't clear abuse and neglect going on in that home, those are families that CFS will refer to us because they don't need apprehension. What they need is some informal supports.
Okay.
So usually the families we're working with are families who have no family in the city or in the province.
And
they have no
like a grandparent or someone like that.
And they have no community, no one to look after their kids, no one to help them, and so they're on their own.
Okay.
And by just not being on their own, they're able to work through some of those things.
So Safe Families, is it based in Winnipeg? Is it only in Winnipeg? Is this tell us more about that organization?
Yeah, so it's sort of international.
Okay.
It's in the U.S., in the U.K., and in Canada.
Okay.
And it started in Chicago.
Oh.
And so it started there in about 2003 and really grew and had a lot of success. And now since 2003 internationally, there's been over 70,000 different hostings that have happened in volunteer homes.
Wow.
And about 95% of children are returned to their families.
Right, okay.
And so it's proven to be a very successful sort of model for caring for families in crisis and making sure that kids stay safe and
that's a high
families stay
percentage.
intact.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you may not know, but Jason Peters is a pastor, recently licensed with the Christian and Missionary Alliance in Canada, and he oversees house churches. And so I would love to have a conversation with you about house churches because I love a lot of the principles of house churches, but not today.
Yeah.
But how did you get involved with Safe Families then?
Yeah, so my wife and I were volunteering with Safe Families.
Okay.
We loved the organization. We heard about it when I was working at Church of the Rock.
Okay.
And so we started volunteering, and as my wife and I sort of followed that call to be just plant house churches, I needed a job.
Right.
And Safe Families was a place that I thought, this is something I'm passionate about.
Right.
I love families. I love kids. I worked in the North End at Church of the Rock's North End location for 5 years. And my heart for those families just broke, but I saw not only the need, but the possibility that Safe Families could have in these families' lives to keep them together and to help them thrive. And so that was sort of what got us into Safe Families. But the reason I love Safe Families is because my dad has severe mental health problems. He has really bad epilepsy. Mm-hmm. He was hit in the head by a board that backfired in a sawmill when he was 18.
Wow, okay.
And so a significant portion of his brain doesn't function as it should. And so I grew up in a home where he had hundreds of seizures in a week. He was often hospitalized for months at a time. He was often needing medical procedures. And my mom would either have to be in the hospital or she'd be at home taking care of 4 kids.
Right.
And both her and my dad immigrated into Canada, neither of them with an education higher than grade 6.
Right.
And so getting jobs that could pay for the family and to deal with everything just wasn't possible. My dad is legally not allowed to work, not allowed to drive.
Okay.
And so we grew up on social assistance. And the money that came in wasn't really enough to provide for us as kids.
Right.
And so there were many months where the grocery bill at the local co-op would hit $800, $900, and some anonymous person from the community I grew up in Rosenort would pay that off. I always was in a home when my parents were gone. So I lived at my friends' houses for a lot of my life.
Yeah.
The churches rallied around my parents. Actually, the whole town of Rosenort rallied around them. We were 6 people living in a 1-bedroom house, and the town bought a house and allowed my parents to rent it at a wage or a price, I guess, that they could, over their lifetime, become the owners of that home, even on social assistance. So the generosity and the support of the community allowed our family to stay together. I never missed out on playing any sports, and I never even knew about CFS. That was never a thought in my mind. And I never thought that was crazy until about 2 months ago when an ex-CFS worker told me, if you'd grown up in Winnipeg, it's a 90% chance that you would have grown up in foster care.
Oh, wow.
Just based on the dynamics of your home
Right.
and the lack of community support they would
Right.
have had growing up here.
Right.
And that really blew my mind, because that was never a fear
Right.
for my family.
Right.
And so for me, Safe Families is quite honestly just trying to provide a little bit of Rosenort, to people
Awesome.
in need. It's to provide that community feel around a person who, I would want families to not have that fear like I did, to not even know that's a possibility, because there's a group of Christians who are going to rally around them, who are going to support them, who are going to care for them, who are going to provide for them materially, who are going to provide a space for them when the parent is just really in desperate need of someone to care for their children, and who are going to be there to be friends of the parent as well.
So you see that community in Safe Families. And so, right. So how can we get involved? Do we have to be a family ourselves? Can it be like a single person, or maybe people have grown up and now their children have children, and so they're empty nesters and they're grandparents? This is a faith-based, this is a Christian organization, right?
Yeah.
So how can people at Cornerstone Alliance Church become involved?
Yeah, so I know Safe Families as a title for an organization can be pretty misleading.
Okay.
A lot of people think you have to have a family to be a safe family.
Okay.
But really, Safe Families is about helping the families in crisis. And the family that we want surrounding them is the church family.
Right. Okay.
So it can be a single person. It can be a married couple. It can be a married couple with kids.
Okay.
It can be empty nesters.
All right.
Anyone can serve with Safe Families. So that's not an issue at all. And there's a few different ways that people can get involved where maybe you feel more comfortable in some of these areas. So one would be to be a resource friend.
Okay.
So resource friends are people who would provide material goods to families in need, or they might provide goods to the families who are volunteering.
Okay.
Because we don't want a barrier to volunteering with Safe Families to be your economic.
I can't afford to do it.
Yeah,
or something.
exactly.
Okay.
Because you could be a really loving, amazing family, and we wouldn't want that to stop it.
Right.
So you might be someone in the church who wants to help this great person or people to support a family in crisis. And so a resource friend provides that material need. The next thing you could do would be a family friend.
Right.
And family friends act like mentors, either to the parent or to the children. Right now we're working with a mom who, one of the big needs that she has is that she's got 3 boys, and 2 of them are constantly fighting. Okay. And when they're out of the home, things are good. When one of them's out of the home, things are good, but when they're together, it's just not great. And so with that situation, we're trying to find mentors. Some people who can just wrap around these 2 young guys and who can sort of keep them busy and invest in them and just love them so that they're not always together in the home. So a family friend is going to be a mentor to a parent, well, essentially a friend. Right. That's what they are. They're a friend to the kids. They're a friend to the parent. They're there to lend a listening ear. They're there to maybe provide a ride to school here and there, or to counseling, maybe in between doctor's appointments. Host families is sort of what Safe Families is known for.
Okay.
And our host families are people who would do anything that requires an overnight stay.
Okay.
And so Safe Families does short-term care for families, as we sort of talked about earlier, because everyone is a volunteer. And so short-term is going to be anywhere from 1 night to sort of 3 consecutive months.
Okay.
Or maybe 6 months if it would be weekend respite. Where a kid's going to come over Friday to a Sunday, and the parent is going to be dealing with whatever it is that they need to deal with.
Okay.
And so host families are going to care for and love kids in their homes. They're the ones who are opening up their homes for sort of an extended period of time to just invite these kids into their day-to-day life.
Right.
And it's not a big drastic change that has to happen where you have to go do, I know a lot of people think, well, now I got to do a bunch of special fun stuff.
Okay, right.
But a lot of the times it's just bringing kids into your life.
Right, and just do your normal routine.
Yeah, because the goal is just to provide stability. You're not becoming the new parent.
Okay, yeah,
We are empowering the parent. And then lastly, we would have family coaches. And family coaches sort of function a little bit more like a traditional social worker.
Okay.
Those are volunteers who have a little more experience in that world, working with kids, working with families.
Right.
And they're going to help oversee and manage the different cases. They're going to follow up with the placing parents. They're going to follow up with the host family, see how things are going. Is the plan working? Do we need to change the plan? What are the new sort of issues? And then begin to just work that out.
Okay.
So those would be sort of the four main ways that you can
I just
get
went to the
involved with
website, safefamiliescanada.com, and it tells what we do, and it looks like there's a way, like what you just explained, different ways that people can get involved.
Yeah.
Safefamilies.com. So, well, Jason, thanks for coming today, and I'd like to have you another time to talk about house churches.
Yeah, let's do it.
And so anyways, you guys go to safefamilies.com. Maybe the hosts who are there on Sunday morning can put that link up there. And if you'd like to know more information or how to get involved, I think it's a great opportunity. I bet some of you didn't even know that this existed, right? So spread the word, share it on Facebook, let people know what's going on. And thanks, Jason, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.